Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the QB List pregame live stream. I'm your host, Aaron Rader, and you can follow me on Twitter at RAY_DUR. And with me, I have my best friend and co-host, Matt Dean, who you can find on Twitter. What's your Twitter again, Matt? Matt Dean QB List?
Yeah, Matt Dean QB List. You should be able to see it also on our tags below our beautiful faces. So
awesome. So how you feeling today, Matt? I know Cowboys.
We got a big one today.
Our two teams face off today in the NFL, and Matt's trying to get his first win in our league of record, if you want to call it, our 16-teamer. Miles Sanders kind of burned him last week, so he's really trying to get the first win.
He's not the only one. So I don't know how you guys are as fantasy managers out there, but I'm what you would call an overreactor. So after week one, I have changed some things up. Mark Ingram is now shipped away. Melvin Gordon's come in. So I feel like there's always overreactors, and then there's people that are overprotective. Which one are you?
Oh, I try not to freak out too much, after week one. I will say I did drop Matt Breida. I did drop Chris Thompson. I wanted to hold Chris Thompson, but needed a few stashes I wanted to make. But yeah, I try not to overreact after week one. I'll try to let it settle, 2 or 3 weeks before I make any crazy decisions. But I can understand if you want to drop some people out there or trade some people away. But having said that, I guess we'll move on to the injury news. We got a whole lot of people to cover this week. We got the biggest one probably is Michael Thomas is out. We don't know the amount of weeks yet, but I think it's a high ankle sprain. And so we're probably looking at least 2 weeks, if I had to say. George Kittle's got a sprained MCL, but they're expecting him back week 3. He's a tough dude. I don't know how you come back from that in that amount of time. Jamison Crowder's out today. Phillip Lindsay's out 2 to 4 weeks. Godwin is out with concussion. He didn't clear protocol. Brandon Cooks is questionable. A.J. Brown's out with, I think he had a bone bruise in his knee, and I think they're saying it could be a couple weeks before he's back. Mm-hmm. Kenny Golladay is out, and then we got a couple people questionable as well. But first off, I want to ask, we'll start off with the biggest one here. Michael Thomas, out a few weeks. What do you think? Who do you think is going to be the benefactor there with him out?
Well, there's so many guys that I feel like are role players there that it's Emmanuel Sanders who caught a touchdown last week, but I think he only had 3 catches. And so hopefully, someone emerges as the go-to. It may only be for 1 week because I think towards the end of the week, Michael Thomas was listed as doubtful. And so there is a chance that he comes back next week, even though it was a multi-week injury from what we've heard. And so I'm thinking Emmanuel Sanders, and past that, I think it's a toss-up. I mean, we could see some Traquan Smith, who had some offseason buzz with, quarterbacks always pump up their receivers, so it's hard to play too much into that. But there's someone you picked up in our league that I recognize that you're hoping could flash something. Do you want to mention him?
Yeah, Deontay Harris is a guy who, I watched the game last week. He had a few flashes here and there. He's a younger player who hasn't really gotten a chance in that offense. He does do returns for him and whatnot. He's mostly a special teams guy, but, anytime a big name like this goes down in the Saints offense, you never know who could come up and be successful. So him, obviously Emmanuel Sanders, Traquan Smith maybe. I really don't know the clear-cut answer. I mean, obviously by default, I would say Emmanuel Sanders probably receives the most work with Thomas out. But I also think Jared Cook will get a few more targets. So if you want to fire him up against the Raiders defense, it's probably smart.
Mm-hmm. Alvin Kamara, I think, may get the biggest boost because I think he's going to be – they'll probably split him out wide. They'll – throw it out of the backfield. He got hardly any run last week on the ground, but he still put up, I think, 24, 25 points in PPR league. So I think he's going to be, a top 3 back maybe this week, just based on how much usage he's going to get. So, not that you're sitting Alvin Kamara anyways, but you just boost him up the rankings a little bit there, I think.
Yeah, and a quick second to say that we got one question here from Matt Tavernite. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He says half point PPR. You starting Deontay Johnson or Scotty Miller?
Well, Deontay Johnson, historically Ben Roethlisberger has supported two receivers very well. We saw it with Antonio Brown and Juju, and I think even before that it was like Hines Ward and Antonio Brown. So Deontay Johnson, he didn't get double-digit targets, but I think he had 7 or 8 this past week. I think Deontay Johnson is a stud flex play. Even, could creep towards wide receiver 2 territory, as the year goes on. Scotty Miller is, and then he threw in Henry Ruggs as well. So, I'm guessing these are probably 2 different leagues, half PPR and then the other one's PPR. I like Scotty Miller a lot, but I don't know that I like him enough to bench Deontay Johnson. I don't know if you're with me there, but especially half PPR, I think Scotty Miller gets more short catches. Deontay Johnson could put up more yards and I think is more of a threat to score. So that's who you're going for and what you're going for in standard and half PPR over, full PPR. So do you want to tackle the Scotty Miller or Henry Ruggs? What do you think there?
Well, I'm with you on Deontay Johnson. I think in half PPR, you do go with the touchdown upside of Deontay Johnson. I think Scotty Miller over Henry Ruggs for now, if it is PPR or even half. I do like Henry Ruggs season long, but this week with no Godwin, I do like Scotty Miller. So if it is the same league and you got Deontay, you're choosing 2 of the 3, I say Deontay Johnson and Scotty Miller if you can. So that's my view on that. We'll get back to the injury news real quick. And guys, if you have any questions, send them here in the chat. We'll put them up on screen and answer them as they come. So the next biggest injury is George Kittle, who has an MCL sprain. He's been out for he left the game early last week. He's out this week. He's supposedly coming back next week. So who's some guys you like there? I know they already have Deebo Samuel out in the receiving core. So who do you like there to get maybe more targets with that injury to Kittle?
Yeah, well, we're seeing Sanu is going to play. We see Ayuk's going to play. Honestly, I mean, this is kind of like looking at New Orleans past Emmanuel Sanders, We really don't know exactly how it's going to shake out. We could see – this is like where we could see Jerick McKinnon play wide receiver,
Yeah.
So, like as the slot guy, I would bet on Ayuk first, probably. But I don't have anyone ranked higher probably than a desperation flex play in that receiving core right now.
I'm interested to see what Mohamed Sanu does this week, just because he's been in Shanahan's offense before, and he's familiar with it. I want to know if he's going to be the main benefactor here, but I also think Jordan Reed could be sneaky as if you want to start him at tight end if you're desperate, or maybe a deep league flex or something. But I think those 2 guys should have some more value. But for the most part, they're probably just going to lean on the run game. I don't see them coming away from that. So, and there's really no point for them to right now with all those injuries. Moving along here to Jamison Crowder. He had some big plays last week. He's really the only receiving threat they have right now besides Rashad Perryman. And that offense just looks bad. I don't know, if anyone's worth picking up, honestly, and except for, 14, 16-team leagues, you might want to pick up Perriman or Herndon.
Yeah, well, also losing Le'Veon Bell, this is going to be whoever is, pick up defenses versus the Jets right now, or start defense versus the Jets right now, because, I just don't see where they're putting up points. Their running back's going to be a combination of P-Run and a guy they just activated off their practice squad last week. So, and P-Ron's coming off an injury, so we don't even know about him. So, sorry, Sam Darnold, but you're in trouble there, buddy. And even with Le'Veon Bell, for those that did take a chance on him, He's on the IR at least for, 3 weeks they have to go on now. So, people who gambled him lost. And I think a lot of people were thinking, he should have been on the do not draft list, which is crazy when a couple of years ago, I was telling people to take him number 1 overall in Pittsburgh. So sorry guys, if you listen to that. But yeah, I think, investing in that offense past Jamison Crowder when he's healthy is a no-go for me right now.
Right. Yeah. And we got a couple more questions rolling in here. This guy, James Lieb, he wants to know which 2 of these guys in half-point PPR, Scotty Miller, J.K. Dobbins, Christian Kirk, Darius Slayton. I think for me, I'm going Scotty Miller, and it's going to be tough between J.K. Dobbins and Darius Slayton, but I think in a half-point PPR, I'm probably going J.K. Dobbins. What do you say?
I'm actually going Scotty Miller and Darius Slayton here, I believe, because I feel like Darius Slayton can get you wide receiver 2 numbers in one play in that offense. And with J.K. Dobbins, they're talking about rotating every week. He only had I think it was 7 carries last week. 2 of them were touchdowns, but I don't think we can bank on 2 touchdowns to get him 12 points every week, So,
right.
And he didn't seem to be that involved in the pass game. So who knows? It could be a Mark Ingram week after I trash talked him and sold him in my league, but in our league, yeah, I'm going Scotty Miller, Darius Slayton, but it's close between Dobbins and Slayton for sure. My take on it.
And then we got another one, start sit PPR, Melvin Gordon or Nyheim Hines. I'm definitely going Hines here. I don't like Melvin Gordon, even though Matt just traded for him in our main league. Definitely going Nyheim Hines in PPR. Melvin Gordon against the Steelers is not going to be a good day because they held Saquon Barkley, I think, to under 30 yards maybe. I
thought they held him to 9 yards.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was less.
He did have 6 catches for 60 yards, I believe. So without Phillip Lindsay there, I think Melvin Gordon is going to have volume just based on, is Royce Freeman going to catch passes out of the backfield over Melvin Gordon? No, I don't think so. So with that defense, really with, Fitzpatrick over the top, and I feel like going deep on them is, while Slayton did have some success last week, I don't think a potentially re-injured Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy are going to take the top off that defense. So I could see lots of dump offs, but I think if you're going with a safe play, I'm guessing this is your flex spot, then I think Hines is going to get, he's not as good as Austin Eckler, I don't think, with the Phillip Rivers led offense, but, I think his floor is 5-6 catches, so
yeah,
I'm good with, I like that Hines over Gordon.
And then we got Elena Salini here says, on the Kittle injury, sorry for the delay. I need to pick up a tight end for today. Olsen, Rudolph, Allie Cox are all available. PPR league. Not a lot of options. I would have to say Rudolph or Olsen, but probably Olsen. I don't like Rudolph or Allie Cox at all, so definitely Olsen for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I'm guessing it must be a pretty deep league with that being available, and because I would have liked for you to have been able to get his replacement Jordan Reed or Logan Thomas, which was a hot ad this week. But if those are your top options, then yeah, I like Olsen the best, just because. I mean, all we have is 1 week, and he caught a touchdown. So,
yeah. Well, we'll hit one more, 2 more injuries here, and then we're going to actually bring on our fearless leader again, Eric Smith. He's waiting in the wings, so we will hit. I think we kind of talked about Chris Godwin, Phillip Lindsay. Now that we talked about Melvin Gordon a few minutes there, Phillip Lindsay's out 2 to 4 weeks, so Melvin Gordon should get all he can handle in the running back. So I don't know. What do you think about Melvin Gordon and his outlook here over the next few weeks without Philip Lindsay, because originally it was supposed to be a 50-50 timeshare, and that's mainly why I passed on him in a lot of leagues to take other players. So
yeah, and honestly, I don't see it as a 50-50 timeshare even when healthy. I think Philip Lindsay is going to be, and I think the touches were 21-8 last week, but Philip Lindsay was lost about halfway through. So, I think it depends on how these weeks go. I think Melvin Gordon has a real chance to just completely take over downs 1 and 2, and even possibly 3. He was a good receiver last year in his shortened season. So I think he has a real shot. I mean, this week he has a really tough matchup, which we talked about. But I mean, look at his schedule here. He has Tampa Bay after that, then the Jets, and then New England, who New England is, I feel like more of a shutdown pass defense, funnels to the running back. So he has a real shot. I think he's going to blow up against Tampa Bay. No doubt about that. I'm excited about that. But, yeah, I think Philip Lindsay, and we don't know. Setbacks can happen. He could come back earlier. But 2 to 4 weeks is a long time for someone to be able to completely take over a job. So my stock on Melvin Gordon's going up, and I'm not just saying that because I own him.
Well, we're gonna I'm still waiting on some final injury news to come out about Brandon Cooks and a few other guys, Golden Tate. I haven't gotten any reports come through on my phone yet, so we'll try to.
Yeah, they're expected to play last I saw. But as we saw last week with Brandon Cooks, it could be, you might not want to start him anyways.
Especially against Baltimore. I would not advise starting Brandon Cooks unless you absolutely have to. But for now, we're going to shift gears here. We're going to bring on Eric Smith, our editor-in-chief. And I want to hit what's going on, Eric. He's a self-proclaimed Bengals fan, so he's already seen his team play this week. I just want to hit a few notes from that game, kind of what I saw and see what Eric thinks about that, see what Matt thought. First thing is Joe Burrow looked, like a veteran quarterback to me. I mean, he missed on him. There's still some throws he's missing on, especially to A.J. Green, unfortunately for me. There's a few touchdown passes he's missed. But I think a lot of that, too, is offensive line play. The offensive line is not doing him any favors. So, Eric, how you doing today, and how do you feel about Joe Burrow heading into the future here?
I'm good. Trying to get some last-minute DFS lineups in, so I'm a little bit split between two things here. But no, I was really encouraged by Burrow. I think most of his mistakes are pretty explainable rookie mistakes. He forces it in sometimes into coverage, but you're not seeing a lot of those rookie passes that you see where it's like almost a pick six the other way where they're reading the coverage wrong. So I'm super encouraged. The offensive line is a big concern, and I'm really worried these receivers aren't getting a ton of separation. So they need someone to make some plays for Burrow to make it a little easier. But as far as Burrow's concerned, I'm really encouraged. There are going to be down weeks when this offensive line can't block for fantasy purposes. But just from a football perspective, I'm super excited to have Burrow.
Yeah, and, as you mentioned, a lot of people were talking about A.J. Green couldn't get any separation, which – it's hard to do against Denzel Ward. He's one of the better corners in the league. But I still see things with A.J. Green that, I think he's just trying to knock the rust off. He hasn't played much in 2 years. So kind of got to give him the benefit of the doubt. I am very pleased, and, I have a positive outlook on him with the 13 targets. I believe he had 13 if I remember correctly. It was definitely over 10. So, and he's had a lot the past 2 weeks. So I'm still high on him this year. I just hope he comes down with a few more catches on those targets.
Yeah, I think that's the big concern is just if he has that elite speed, if that comes back. So I definitely agree. It could just be rust, and here in a week or two he looks better. It's just hard to know if he's lost a step or not. So keep an eye on that for sure. But yeah, definitely he's the primary look for Burrow right now. So that's good, especially if he's going to keep throwing 61 times in a game.
Yeah, and I feel the same way with Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, everyone's ready to sell on him. He hasn't had, the production people are used to. But Joe Mixon does this every year. I feel like the first 3 or 4 games starts out slow. And, in this offense, if Joe Burrow is going to be throwing it that much a game, surely he'll get some of the dump-offs. I know they used they used Gio Bernard a bit more than I would like to see if I'm a Joe Mixon owner that last game. But
yeah, I thought it was funny because, I mean, everyone's panicking about Mixon. This is what he's been for the last 2 or 3 years. So you drafted him where you did just kind of for the safety. You know, he's going to be – I mean, he's been healthy, knock on wood, and he'll have weeks where he scores touchdowns and you're happier. But, I mean, this isn't anything new. I actually think the 4 catches is pretty encouraging. So we'll see. But Gio's always going to be out there in third downs and 2-minute drills to some extent.
Right. And, Matt, I know you kind of benefited on the Joe Mixon late start last year, giving up like 2 backup running backs or something like that, I believe, in our league to get Joe Mixon, and then he went on to dominate. So are you kind of feeling the same way about Mixon right now?
Yeah, I'm actually looking to see who owns him in our league. But no, I think I had concerns coming in about where he was getting drafted. A lot of places he was going, 8th, 9th, 10th overall, ahead of guys like Julio, Miles Sanders, Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler, Kenyon Drake, even Josh Jacobs some places. So I think if I drafted him that high, I am a little frustrated right now, especially if I haven't been a Mixon owner before and don't know what that entails in some games versus others. I think there was a lot of hope with a new quarterback coming in with Joe Burrow. And I think this week we saw the upside that Joe Burrow can bring. So I would say next year we see Mixon drafted a little lower if he doesn't have like all the the touchdowns we're hoping for, the catches we're hoping for. But I mean, I'm definitely a buyer if someone's frustrated enough to sell, if that makes sense.
Right.
Same for me.
Yeah, and I think so. Just to kind of touch on, I mainly wanted to talk about the Bengals with Eric, but I will say, one thing about the Browns too is people were kind of panicking with Nick Chubb week 1. And I think it's going to be the same story as last year. When they have the lead and they can control the tempo of the game, Nick Chubb's going to be in there. He's going to be dominating. I mean, his yards per carry have been pretty good. I'm pretty sure he averaged 10 yards per carry in the first game. So I wasn't concerned. I just knew that it was game script and they were down to the Ravens really quick. But if they get down in games, I mean, it's going to be Kareem Hunt in there. And if like I said, if they have the ability to control the tempo and whatnot, they're going to have Chubb in there feeding him. So don't panic sell on Chubb. Just maybe be kind of cautious when it comes to games you think they may, if they're playing a Kansas City or somebody like that, just be mindful of that. We do have another start-sit question from Callan Elslager. Cortland Sutton or Darius Slayton PPR?
Oof.
I'm afraid to start Sutton this week. Yeah. I've got him in a few teams, and it says he's good to go now. I'm still leaving him on the bench. There's nothing worse than starting a banged-up receiver that sees 2 targets. So I think Slayton's good enough. I'd go with him.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like Sutton with the injury and going against Pittsburgh. Nothing there really excites me. But I think we hit pretty much everything in the Thursday night game that was relevant. We're going to move on to the Week 2 QB list rankings, which are done by yours truly, Eric Smith. I'm going to pull those up and see if who you got too low this week.
And I do have some updates since that. I just updated some stuff with injury news this morning. So, we can talk through some of those changes.
I know you're excited to talk about a few things. Hint, hint. J.K. Dobbins, hint, hint. Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, right. It's funny. I'm not running the victory lap on Dobbins quite yet. Kind of like you mentioned earlier, Matt. I wouldn't be that surprised to see Mark Ingram get the 2 touchdowns this week. So, I think he's a solid flex play this week. But let's see a few more rushing yards before we go all in on Dobbins.
Or we could see the 2 rushing touchdowns to Lamar Jackson. You just never know.
Exactly.
I'm not fully off the Ingram wagon yet. As I was telling Matt earlier, I think it's going to be more of a 1-2 punch with him and Dobbins. I know a lot of guys got carries last week for them, but I think it's going to be – I don't think it's completely Dobbins' backfield yet. But to start with the quarterbacks, one guy, which I think you kind of got down here reflecting the matchup, but Deshaun Watson's at 5 on here. He's playing Baltimore. He's a guy I don't like this week as much as I love Deshaun Watson. I think he's missing Hopkins a lot right now. He doesn't have Cooks is banged up. He's got Fuller, and that's about it. He's got David Johnson, who he can dump it off to. But playing Baltimore, never a good matchup for any quarterback. So I think I might would have him even lower than Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, and Kyler Murray. So I'd probably slide him down almost to 7 or 8.
Yeah, Watson's one of those. It's just his rushing ability. I expect them to fall behind and have to chuck it a lot. So he's one of those that I just kind of keep up there pretty high most weeks. I mean, if I had Watson, I just can't imagine I'm benching him. So it's more just respecting his ability. But, I mean, I definitely agree. Matt Ryan and Rodgers have really nice matchups there. So I don't know. I'm banking on Watson being Superman this year and pulling out some garbage time maybe. But we will see. This will be a real big test for him.
Matt, how do you feel about Watson this week against Baltimore?
I think the top 8 he has is looking really good. Russell Wilson could have a tougher time with New England than obviously he had last week with his matchup, but I think based on his week last week and just his consistency, you have to have him 4. So I don't have a problem with Deshaun Watson at 5. My main concern with Watson is losing the DeAndre Hopkins. We saw what that did for Kyler Murray adding him. His weapons are just, if he loses one, who's he throwing to, So I think it could be a slow trickle of Deshaun Watson down the board a little bit over the coming weeks, especially if he's not getting, more playmaking on the outside. So I think 5's good for this week, though.
Hey, he gets Pittsburgh next week, too. So gets a little break after that, though, but a couple of tough weeks here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and one guy I like a little better, too, at least better than Cam Newton for this week, who you got Cam Newton over him, Josh Allen against Miami. He looked really great last week, and I think he's primed for another big day today against the Miami defense that looked pretty bad. That whole division's, it's pretty much Buffalo and New England in my mind. But Josh Allen, with the rushing floor, if he would just hit a few more of those touchdown passes last week, he might have been the top quarterback in the league in terms of fantasy. But he does have the inaccuracy issues. That's just kind of what you have to deal with him, which I'm sure, a lot of people got him much later than a lot of these other quarterbacks who have rushing upside. So that's just a guy I like a lot better this week, especially in DFS. So.
Yeah, I guess I was just kind of concerned his volume's going to drop down a little bit. I mean, he ran the ball 14 times, passed 46 times against the Jets, which is kind of crazy. I expect them to play some kind of low-scoring, grinded-out games. So I kind of think they give the ball to the running backs a little bit more going forward. But if Josh Allen keeps throwing the ball this much and running the ball, then, yeah, he's probably a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah, and that's a good segue, as you mentioned, Buffalo backs, because I do have Zach Moss in one league. I'm thinking of flexing him over Edelman or Corey Davis. How do you feel about those guys moving forward and whose backfield it is? Do you think it's pretty even right now? Or?
Yeah, I think it's pretty even. I like Moss a lot, especially for where he was being drafted. I drafted a lot of Moss. So I think he's got a nice goal line role, and he's going to be nice to start. You said that was Edelman was the second one?
Yeah, Edelman, Corey Davis, or Zach Moss are my 3 choices in my last flex spot.
Yeah, if it's half or PPR, I think I'd probably go Edelman. I just think the Patriots are going to have to throw more against the Seahawks this week, and he could catch a bunch of balls. He's pretty much the clear option for Cam Newton, so we'll see if they open it up a little more this week. But I don't mind playing Moss. I think there's going to be some up and down weeks until we really see how this backfield splits up.
Well, you give me some stuff to think about, Eric. Now I'm going to have to go back and maybe put Edelman back in. But former colleague of ours, Colin Weatherwax, shout out to him. He's got a hot take for us. Scotty Miller, wide receiver 1 this week. I don't think that's that hot of a take. I think he definitely has the upside with Godwin out. I think that Tom Brady favors slot receivers these days.
Is this a wide receiver 1 or the wide receiver 1?
that's how we need to know how hot that take is.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I don't know. I like him as a streaming option. It feels like a trap. You get these fantasy plays some weeks where you're like, everyone's all in on Scotty Miller and he gets 5 targets. But he looked good last week, and Brady seems to like him. So Carolina's a nice matchup.
A wide receiver 1, not the.
Okay.
It seems like Scotty Miller might be. I don't think he's Wes Welker, Julian Edelman level of skill. Maybe he is, and I'll will be eating crow later on. But Tom Brady praised him in the offseason. He likes him, so
yeah,
I would give him low end wide receiver 2 upside. But yeah, Colin, if we're wrong, just hit us up on Twitter and let us know. I know you will. So
yeah, get him in your DFS lineups too. Make some money off of him.
Yeah.
He says, surprise. Me and Eric disagree. I'm sure that's no surprise.
Yeah.
So kind of segueing in here to the running backs, we'll start with at the top with since mine and Matt's teams are playing this week, we'll start with Zeke, who you have number 2, and I think unfortunately could have a very big day after what we saw Chris Carson do last week. I'm hoping I'm wrong. He could be. I know Fantasy Pros had him as the number 1 play this week in PPR. So, but yeah, our defense, I'm hoping, comes together. I was very pleased with what I saw from the defensive front. In some instances, the pass rush was better in my opinion, but I think we have a lot of young players, especially in the secondary, and it's really costing us right now. So.
Yeah, and Smith is out for the offensive line on Dallas. They've got a lot of injuries there, so that's a little bit of a worry. I still think Zeke will be just fine. But
actually, with Smith out, I think that may cater to more of a power run style of game for them. I mean, they probably are going to put their best pass rusher on that side now. I'd say Atlanta would if they, are wanting to take advantage of matchup. So I could see, that it's more of a quick throw running game if they have problems with the pass rush. So,
yep, definitely.
And our sister site, our flagship here, Pitcher List says Logan Thomas breakout game today, who I think Ben Brown's calling for in the preseason. He had a touchdown last week, so maybe Ben's on to something there. That he's definitely a deep, tight end sleeper if you don't have any other options and you want to pick someone up and hope they go off here.
Oh, I have other options, and I'm starting him.
Matt,
I've got him at TE 14. I mean, Arizona was terrible against tight ends last year, and he's kind of in the mix with me of that tier where it starts with Noah Fant, Hayden Hurst. So he could be as high as tight end 11. I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, and I also think that Washington's going to have to throw a lot to keep up with Arizona. So that's definitely someone who could have a big week. Moving on here, I know, speaking of victory laps, you've been ahead of the curve on Fournette before he got cut, and now Jonathan Taylor. Who knew you predicted the Marlon Mack injury last week? I know you kind of saw the future on that one, but you got Jonathan Taylor here at 12. Do you how do you think that splits up between him and Nyheim Hines? You got Hines down here at 19, so what's your thought process on those two?
I mean, it would make sense for Taylor to take the early down and goal line stuff. Hines was in a lot in the goal line last week, but I think Hines is going to be the third down and spell him, but this is really Taylor's backfield, and the fact that he caught 6 passes last week is super encouraging. So I'm just, Minnesota, they're traditionally a tough matchup, but they just got ripped by the Packers last week. So I'm just going with it. I think he's super talented. You saw in some of those passes that he's got a lot of speed. So he'll get better on the ground as he goes, and I just think there's a ton of upside. But, I love him and Hines. I think, like you all said earlier, we're kind of looking at a Rivers 2.0 situation here in Indianapolis with Eckler and Gordon. I think it's Taylor and Hines this time. Only Taylor, I don't know, he could prove to be better than Gordon. We'll see.
Yeah, I think if we drafted today, that you would see Jonathan Taylor going in the top 8 picks. So I think that's because especially knowing what we know now, his big thing coming in was, can he catch passes? Yep. Well, I think he went 6 for 6 last week, right? So, and I think even if you're not that great at catching passes and Phillip Rivers is your quarterback, he's going to make you good at catching passes. So, I think right now you have him, RB 12. I think we see him continue to move up as we go on here because Hines isn't an early down guy for sure. So, I'm excited for his upside.
Yeah, definitely. And I think –
go ahead.
Well, I was just saying I think that Nyheim Hines, I think him and, maybe Nyheim Hines can get some of that kind of Eckler light, if you will, the way Phillip Rivers dumped it off to him last year. So hopefully that's the case. And yeah, Jonathan Taylor could be in for a big year. So if you got him late, congratulations.
Yeah. Eric, I have a question for you. So really a concern from my own heart in the fantasy world, because right now you have, and I'm hoping this is just based on injury concern, but Miles Sanders all the way down at number 25, the first round pick, a lot of places, early second, certainly for me. So for owners that are looking for him to come in and save the day, what was your thinking of putting him, behind guys like David Montgomery and Devin Singletary?
Well, I just moved him up today, so the injury news is just looking really encouraging. It looked like for a minute, maybe we'd be worried about more of a, ease him back in, share the snaps this week, but it sure looks like, it says right here 100% healthy, so that might be a little bit of optimism, but I think he's ready to go. So I got him up to running back 15 now. So that's like, right behind the elite guys. Let's see a week from him healthy, but no, I think they need him. We saw last week they need him. So if he's good to go, he's going to get a lot of passes, and I think we can breathe a sigh of relief here. They must have just been playing it safe with Washington week 1, and it backfired because they lost. But I think he's good to go.
Well, the Washington defense actually, I think, they're playing Arizona this week, but they showed us some good things with their pass rush last week. So they might, I could see some wheel routes. We saw that a lot last year with him, screens, things like that. So, it'll be interesting to see this week. I agree. It's good to not move him up into the top 10 before we see him play a snap. So, looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely play him if you got him, though. I can't imagine you have two better options. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's not a whole lot of questions I have with the receivers rankings. I'm looking over here. Just so everybody knows, I don't know if they haven't updated on my end, but Chris Godwin's still showing there. He's out this week. And Cortland Sutton is playing. I don't know. See him on here, but there's not a whole lot of concern I have over these or anybody I disagree with too much. I do think you, as we said, move up Scotty Miller, and move up Marvin Jones probably with no Kenny Golladay.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too cautious with Scotty Miller. What about someone like Robbie Anderson? Would you rather play Robbie Anderson or Scotty Miller this week?
If I needed the safer play, I'd go Scotty Miller. I still don't know, in Carolina who's going to be. I think that ball's going to be spread around to each of those receivers every week, and I think Curtis Samuel and Robbie Anderson kind of play the same role, but it does seem that Robbie Anderson, even camp reports were telling me, what I was reading was that's why I passed on Curtis Samuel, because they were saying that Robbie Anderson was moving into the number 2 role and kind of outperforming Curtis Samuel in camp and stuff. So
it's also hard to bank on a 75-yard touchdown every week. So
for sure.
But I think we saw in Carolina, speaking of them, I think they had 3 guys with like 9 targets or something like that. Like they spread the ball out a ton. So I think, especially for that receiving core, getting another week under their belt, we'll be able to evaluate that a little better. But I think it's the question you asked. I'll probably go Scotty Miller. If it's standard or half PPR, I might swing towards Robbie Anderson just for the touchdown upside there, the deep ball upside.
Okay. Yeah, it's just Scotty Miller's tough to know. I could see them running the ball a lot this week against Carolina, especially if they get the lead. They've still got 3 good tight ends that Brady's going to like to target. We'll see if Gronk gets more involved. So Mike Evans is out there. There's still some options, but I probably should have him higher.
And sorry to jump back to running backs. Do you guys think Rojo continues to be the guy, or does it end up trending towards 50-50? What do y'all think?
I think Ronald Jones is the guy for now. I think now if today if they get up against Carolina big and they're just chewing clock, I think that Fournette will get more work today. But I think to start the game, I liked Rojo this week against that Carolina defense. I think they gave up like the 3rd most yards or 3rd most fantasy points to running backs last week. So, I definitely firing up Ronald Jones if I can, and we'll see how Fournette shakes out. But I would start Ronald Jones over Fournette today.
Yeah, agreed. It's just hard to know when Fournette's going to start eating in more. It seems like we can't trust Bruce Arians on anything as far as the coach speak goes. He just always misleads us. So it's just a matter of how high to rank Jones. I've got him at RB23 right now, like right behind Melvin Gordon, just because I know that Melvin Gordon's going to get a ton of work. But I don't know if Fournette doesn't eat into it at all, he could be like an RB 15 this week. So it's just hard to know. But I can't imagine Fournette's just going to ride the bench all year. So
yeah, it's hard to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and moving on to tight ends here, there's two guys back to back in your rankings at 9 and 10 that I think could have a little bit more, little better day this week than some of these other guys. Is T.J. Hawkinson and Jonnu Smith. I think with Hawkinson, he scored a touchdown last week, I believe. He also, received some more work with Galladay out last week. They're playing Green Bay. Galladay's out again. I think he could be the benefactor there in the passing game, along with Marvin Jones and those guys. And Jonnu Smith is another guy who a lot of people are calling for a breakout, with Delaney Walker fully out of the picture. And I think he's another guy that benefits also with their top receiver out. So,
yeah. No, I love both of them, actually. So no pushback there. I'm just kind of thinking Jared Cook takes a lot of work against the bad Raiders defense, and Waller's just pretty safe and consistent. I guess probably Evan Ingram's the one you would bump down out of that. He's just so talented. I have a hard time ranking him too low, but against Chicago is not a great matchup for sure.
Yeah, and what I'm looking for this week here is how long can the Eagles sustain two tight ends in fantasy as well? So that'll be something to watch this week. For those that are, I think Dallas Goedert was maybe the top tight end ad this week, if I had to guess, for most leagues out there, maybe followed by Logan Thomas. Noah Fant was probably available some places, so it'll be interesting to see for those that are starting Goddard. I think until they get some wide receiver help in there, I'm starting Dallas Goedert if I don't have a better option. So it'll be interesting to see how long they support those two tight ends.
Yeah, and I think the answer is, I think they're going to keep running them out there until they get some wide receiver help. And it didn't take but 1 week for Deshaun Jackson to show up questionable heading into this week. I think he's playing today, but I know he was showing up questionable at the beginning of the week. But they don't have a whole lot of receiving options until Jalen Reagor shows us something. I'm not sure about Arcega-Whiteside. He hasn't really shown anything either. So I think they'll continue to use Ertz and Goddard. And Ertz is also in a contract year. He's kind of frustrated they haven't given him a deal. So maybe they start using Goddard even more. But
yeah, I think Rager's the big one to look for. If he takes a jump, he only saw 4 targets last year, but he caught a 55-yarder. So coming off injury, maybe he gets more work. But I agree, until somebody really takes over at receiver, it's going to be pretty safe to trust these tight ends. Miles Sanders will take some work too, but they need all the targets they can get right now.
Yeah, and one guy, as far as tight ends, I want to talk about too, is who had a lot of preseason hype because of what he did in the playoffs last year. Fantasy playoffs, is Tyler Higbee. Are you guys what do you guys think about him? You've got him down here at 14, Eric, second to last on your rankings, and he didn't do a whole lot last week, and Gerald Everett was involved again, so I don't know if this is going to be more of a, those two guys kind of split every week, or if they're going to draw up some stuff for Tyler Higbee again, and he's going to be the main focal point. So,
yeah, I'm actually starting Logan Thomas over Higbee this week. So, and you have them ranked right back to back of each other, Eric. So, I'll let you speak to, was it a toss up between those two for that 14-15 slot?
Yeah, pretty much. They still did a lot of 2 tight end sets last week. So, I think Higbee's still going to be involved. Everett was on the injury report, Gerald Everett, but now he's back. So, Higbee still does have that competition. I think he's maybe a little safer play than Logan Thomas, but Logan Thomas maybe has more upside rest of the season. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't think Higbee's going to burn you here, but there's just some other options that moved up. Maybe Hayden Hurst shouldn't be above him. I don't know. I just expect him to get more targets as this goes on. And then those like Fant, Goddard, Jonnu Smith, Hawkinson, that range, I just think they're way better players than Higbee is. So it seems like Higbee's kind of what we got out of Hooper last year. I feel like Austin Hooper. So I'm kind of penciling him in for pretty solid work. Maybe not quite that good as Hooper, but that's kind of how I view Higbee.
Yeah, and like you said, they're running more 2 tight end sets and whatnot. And just to hit on the Hurst point, I feel like he got a decent amount of looks last week. There was a few he dropped, but I don't have any concerns about him. I think he'll be hopefully up there in the top 10 every week in that offense. So.
Yeah, I don't think Russell Gage is going to get 12 targets every week or whatever he got. He'll be involved, but that was a little excessive, I think.
Yeah, because he was – somebody's got to come on there without Mohamed Sanu. He kind of came on last year, and he's maybe he does. Maybe Russell Gage is a wide receiver 4 or 5, maybe even with 3 upside each week. So I don't think, maybe I might hit a defense or 2 here. Matt, I don't know if you have any more questions about tight ends, but I think some defenses I like this week that maybe you kind of low on, or middle of the pack here. Arizona Cardinals against Washington. I think that's a strong DFS play this week. I think they were going for like 3,000 in DraftKings or so, and they were kind of down there in the middle of the pack, mid-tier options. So that's somebody I would start. I also like Buccaneers against Carolina, even though it did look like Carolina's capable of slinging it, and Teddy is more than capable of scoring points. And also they have Christian McCaffrey, so you can never count him out. But those are just a few of the streaming defenses I noticed this week. One thing to note with Chicago Bears against the Giants, I think Khalil Mack was out this week. I think I saw an injury report. So
I didn't catch that one. I know he was questionable at least, but I haven't seen recently. So
Ben Brown asked, DFS flex spot, Jonnu or Scotty? I think we know our pick at this point. I know Eric might be on the fence, but I'm definitely going Scotty Miller in a flex for DFS over Jonnu.
Yeah, I'm not big on playing tight ends and flex generally, so Scotty Miller.
And especially in cash versus tournament, even I think I'm going more of the safer floor, I think. And I think Scotty for sure, especially since PPR, Scotty could get 5-6 catches. So I think he has a pretty safe floor there.
Yeah, if one of them was going to get like 10, 12 targets, I think it'd be Scotty Miller. So I would go with him.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up for rankings. Kind of wanted to do a little bit of a different segment here this week since we have seen week 1. This is something I, wanted to do, within probably 3 weeks or so of the season starting, just so we get a little bit of a more understanding of the value of players. But we'll go ahead and do buy or sell this week. I know Matt had a few he wanted to hit. I'm sure he's got Melvin Gordon on there maybe as one. But I'll start and say, I'll start with Mark Ingram since we kind of talked about him. Do you guys view him as a buy, a sell, or kind of maybe even a hold if you have him?
I would call him a buy. It's just a matter of I would imagine the Melvin Gordon owners aren't looking to sell right now. But no, this is great. It clears the way. Lindsey out for a few weeks. We'll see how long this lingers, like you said earlier. So looks great for Gordon. He'll have better matchups than Pittsburgh this week. So we know he can catch passes if given the opportunity. And yeah, I'm in. I'm back in on Gordon. I don't know how high he rises in the running back rankings, but he should be pretty dependable every week.
Yeah, and I agree there because I did buy and I sold Mark Ingram. So
yeah,
with Ingram, I just think, for buy or sell with Ingram, I think he's a sell right now because, if he has, 10 carries for 20 yards and 2 touchdowns this week, as opposed to J.K. Dobbins last week.
Yeah.
I just think that's a roller coaster you're going to not want to be on this year because even Gus Edwards, I think, got at 4, 5, 6 carries last week. So, and then basically they're running a 4 running back system, the quarterback being one of the running backs. And unfortunately, Mark Ingram's too nice of a guy that he's everyone's biggest cheerleader. I don't know if you saw him getting the game ball for J.K. Dobbins last week, but I think we see with Mark Ingram, he is a do what it takes to win kind of guy versus a personal gain. I'm going to complain until I get mine kind of guy. So I just think that might be a situation where I'd rather buy J.K. Dobbins, I think, than Ingram right now, just based on, when they get up, who are they going to put in, Ingram or get Dobbins more run? I think Dobbins is the guy that's going to get those. So I'm selling Ingram, buying Dobbins.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think like you were saying, I might wait a week and let maybe Ingram score a couple touchdowns or something. It might take a couple weeks, but I agree. And the reason I like Dobbins so much is you could get him in the 6th, 7th, 8th round of a lot of drafts, so it was just a better value. But I think he's the better player at this stage of their careers, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah, and I know one guy who I would kind of sell high if I could. right now. Of course, he is injured and out this week, but Jamison Crowder is probably a guy I would be trying to sell in PPR leagues if I can. Just kind of sell him off that big game last week. I think he had 23 PPR points. He is the only receiver they have there, but that offense is just so bad. No Le'Veon Bell. Frank Gore is probably going to be their starting running back. He's like 40 years old at this point. So I think Jamison Crowder is a guy I would try to package with somebody to try and get an upgrade somewhere. Mm-hmm. How do you guys feel about Jamison Crowder?
Yeah, I think it's going to be difficult with his injury right now to be able to, sell high on him right now. I don't know. I think I would actually be buying Jamison Crowder, honestly, just based on how little time Darnold has to get that ball out and how he runs the quick, short routes, I feel like. So I think I might be on the other side of the coin on that one. But
yeah, I'm a little indifferent, so I'm not going to help it. No, just kidding. I don't know. He's good when he's out there. He'll get you a floor. I wouldn't bank on those big plays like he had last week. So it just depends on how much this injury kind of derails him for a couple weeks. But I would probably, if someone isn't given an injury discount, if you can get a full price for Crowder, I'd probably move him. So
yeah, he's kind of like a higher floor Cole Beasley.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I see him.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Another one. I mean, I was talking about everyone panicking earlier with Nick Chubb, but I mean, I am concerned about the games where if they get behind, he's not going to be a factor as much. So if I'm not actively trading, I'm not actively seeking some, but if someone came to me, wants Nick Chubb, for a possible better back, a top 10 back or something like that, Chubb's probably on that borderline of top 10 in PPR. I'd listen. I mean, I'd certainly listen.
I agree with that. Bengals defense is not good anyway, and they did not have Geno Atkins. There's another defensive tackle out, so that was a dream spot there for Chubb. I mean, he'll have good weeks like this, but I agree with you.
And here's one I got for you guys right here. So some news just came through via Ian Rappaport saying that Michael Thomas sought out a second opinion and was told again 2 to 4 weeks is his timetable. Is there any Saints wide receivers you're buying? Are you even trying to buy, lower than a top 5 pick value on Michael Thomas at this point while he's on someone's IR spot?
I mean, I guess if you started out 2-0 and you thought your team was loaded and you could, kind of make it through a few weeks, maybe if it was a good deal. But we know how these injuries tend to linger. I mean, it kind of crushed Christian Kirk last year, and Saquon, it really sapped some of his explosiveness. So I wouldn't be super excited to go get Thomas. But, yeah, if someone's giving him away and you can afford it. I wouldn't do it if you're like an 0-2 team after this week, though.
Right.
Yeah, if you can afford the depth and everything, I would definitely try to do a 2-for-1 or whatever it takes to get Michael Thomas. If you're off to a good start, like you said, I wouldn't do it if I'm 0-2, but maybe even buy low while you can on Emmanuel Sanders right before the Monday night game. If you want to do that, he could be a guy that could really come on here with Michael Thomas out. So,
yeah, but I think you're feeling best about your Alvin Kamara shares at this point.
Yeah. Well, we're getting close here to kickoff. We got about 7 minutes left, and I don't know if Eric set his lineups or Matt has set his.
I wanted to see, for those that are setting DFS lineups, we have 7 minutes to get those lineups in, 6 minutes to be safe. If you had to pick, I wanted to ask this earlier, but I just didn't get it in. I feel like defense is where you can save a lot of salary for those other players. Mm-hmm. If you had to pick a defense to stream this week, who are you guys looking at?
I'm making one on FanDuel right now. It depends on what site you're on, but I feel like the Bears are cheaper than they should be against the Giants. So that could be a lot of turnovers there for Daniel Jones. They're not super cheap, but I think they're a pretty good value.
Yeah, and I think, I said earlier Arizona's one. Their value is pretty good. There's not a whole lot that Washington can do to really put up points. I mean, I'm not scared of anyone really but McLaurin. So I think Dwayne Haskins could have a few turnovers against that defense today.
Yeah.
Well, I think those are good options. I'm keeping an eye on, I wouldn't necessarily be looking to go out and start Washington's defense this week, but I think they could become a streaming defense that we see in the coming weeks if their pass rush holds up. So, but yeah, that was a personal who you stream question because I'm also in that predicament right now. And then if you guys were looking at a quarterback streamer, so I feel like, someone that's lower price always pops off, right? So does anybody stand out to you in like that 10 to 15 range? You said Josh Allen. Aaron was one of your go-tos, but he's probably one of the higher priced guys. So any streaming options at QB for DFS stand out for y'all?
Well, like you said, Josh Allen, but don't start him because if you're in my DK, I'm starting him, Matt. And I know you are. But Matthew Stafford might be. I don't know his DFS price, but I think him and Rodgers could have a little bit of a back-and-forth duel today. He's a guy I would maybe look at.
Yeah, Stafford's probably a good call. That could be a shootout, him playing from behind. So, yeah, I like Stafford.
I was actually looking at Stafford as well. It seems like Green Bay always crushes the Lions for some reason. But if that's the case, then Stafford's going to throw it 45 times. So,
yep.
I think Stafford's a good choice there.
It'd be nice to have Galladay back, but he should still have a good game.
Yeah.
We got one start-sit question here. Do I start Tannehill or Brady? I'm going Brady against Carolina. I don't respect their defense at all. Hopefully that doesn't come back to haunt me when we play them twice a year. But, yeah, I'm definitely going Brady here.
Yeah, I agree. I don't mind Tannehill as a play, but I like Brady.
A pissed-off Brady is a good Brady.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they could really come out and just make a statement today. I really think they're going to pound the ball a lot, but I think Brady will probably come out and also do a little bit here to look vintage. So, well, guys, I think we'll wrap up here. We got 4 minutes till kickoff. We'll let us kind of go and make our last-minute lineup decisions.
I think I got them all set. I'm not sure.
Matt and I got to get ready for this Cowboys-Falcons duel. Hopefully, Hopefully we won't be 0-2, but we're both looking at that possibility here.
Hey, one of us won't be 0-2, and it won't be us. So good luck getting that first win next week, buddy.
But thanks for joining us, Eric. Matt, thanks for joining me as well. We're going to be back next week, 12 to 1 Eastern. Anything you guys want to plug here before we sign off?
Just what we saw tomorrow morning, and we will have the What We Saw podcast out tonight, probably around 11 p.m. or so, but should be ready for you on Monday.
All right. And a few more articles. Thursday morning, we always do the sit start. Come and join us on Reddit. We try to answer every single question for you guys. There's a ton of them, so we do our best to get through. I think one of our guys has carpal tunnel after answering so many, but yeah, we got that article. We got the rankings every week. We got the Beat the Spread article, which is our betting column. We're going to try to have the guy that authors that on one of these weeks and talk to him about some betting stuff because I could use some education in that.
Yeah, with 2 weeks left or 2 minutes left, look, so we have one last question here. Let's answer that real quick. Chark or Fuller or Moore? I think I'm going Fuller or Moore.
I'm going Chark and Moore. Fuller against Baltimore, I don't like it.
I'm going DJ Moore. I'm not ready to move on from him yet. So Moore would be my start. And then I believe I have Fuller, even though that matchup's not great. I just think he's going to get a lot of targets.
Volume.
Yeah. So Moore, Fuller, Chark for me. But we'll see. Maybe Chark just 3 targets last week worries me a little bit.
Well, guys, it's been a fun one. I can't wait to do it again next week.
Yeah.
But thanks for joining
Cowboys.
me. Thanks for joining me again. And thanks, everybody, for coming and watching. We'll see you next week.
Cool. See y'all.